Hi and welcome to another Squeaky Chimp tutorial, and for this tutorial we're going to be carrying on our month of black beads. So last week we made these beads, and if you didn't catch this video I will leave a link in the description box and it will also appear up here. Yes, for the whole of the month of February I'm going to be doing things with black beads, which then leads me on to think, well, what might my theme be for March? So if there is a particular colour or a particular shape bead that you would like me to focus on for the month of March, leave a comment in the box below and I will read them all, and you never know, your suggestion might be my theme for the next month. Which then leads me on very nicely to please give a like to the video, and if you can subscribe to the channel, it helps me enormous. This was last week's bead. Moving on swiftly, this is what we are going to be making today. So I made 3 variations, and I made this one, which has got it kind of coming down from the top and the bottom, this one which has sort of got a bit of an organic feel going around, and this one I did in stripes, and this is not my favourite, so I'm getting rid of that one. Not that keen on that one, but this is the one that we're going to recreate again today, but I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it. But you can see that it's got a 3D texture to it. So it's slightly different to your normal bead, because today we're going mixed media. Oh yes, we're going to be doing something completely different and something that might take you out of your comfort zone, but I'm going to show you 2 options for it that you may not have considered before. So for this bead, what I used was Sculpey liquid oven baked clay adhesive, and I used rose gold leaf, so I used this one. But what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to use, because this one is a cloudy liquid and it also gave quite a smooth texture, so I'm going to have a play with using Fimo liquid gel oven hardening, but this one is more of a clearer, slightly cloudy liquid, and I'm also going to use UV resin for another version. So we'll do both, and then you can choose and we can choose and we can have a look at the end and see whether it makes any difference as to which one you go for. You're going to need some beads. I have pre-rolled some black tube beads, and I have put them on these skewers. And the reason I've put them on these skewers is because when it comes to using these liquid Fimo clay, you're going to need to want to put these in the oven. So you're going to want to stand them on something. I'll show you what I have. I have a very old loaf tin that I don't use anymore. It's purely for crafting because it's disgusting. It's a bit rusty, but it's only used for crafting, and you're going to want to balance your beads on it. And then you're going to need, I've got one of these silicone paintbrushes. I've got a plastic cocktail stick, and then I've also got 2 other colours of foil. So the one I did my beads with, this one was with this, so let's keep that as our reminder. This one was with this one. I used rose gold. So for the UV resin, I think I'm going to use silver foil. So I've got that here. Be really careful with it because it is very fly away. And then for this liquid Fimo, I'm going to use gold, so we'll be able to see at the end which one looked which way. So right, let's get started. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to put some of this liquid Fimo into one of these little plastic pots. We're not going to need loads, so I will show you how much I'm going to put in a minute. I can kind of base it on roughly how much I used last time, but it's not loads. Okay, so that is how much I've put in. You can see I've put in an amount. And then I am going to get my gold leaf. Now, you do need to be quite careful with this because it does fly away. It is literally quite wafty. I'm not sure that's actually a word, but we'll go with wafty. And what you're going to do is you're literally going to put it in and mix it around. Now, when I made my first bead, I used, I think it was only one sheet. And for this one, I'm going to use two. So I want to see what happens if we really saturate it. So I'm going to pop that in and we'll do the first one first. Okay, so that is our Fimo mixed up. And that's my cocktail stick broken. Marvellous. Just a bit rough. Let me get another one. And you know what? I'm not going to edit that out because this is the reality of making things. This is the reality of craft. Things go wrong. If you're looking for a perfect video, you've come to the wrong channel. You know, just saying. Right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take each individual bead. So I'll just move that up very slightly. And what I did was I took some of the liquid. You don't want too much. And we're going to go from the top down. So I'm just going to start and add it. And you'll see it starts to stick to your bead. So just get some on. And then once it's on, we can then start to manipulate it. Now you might decide that you want to go over the edge, you want to cover the top of your bead, but just be careful you aren't going near your cocktail stick, because what you don't want is for your bead to then adhere to your stick when you then stick it in the oven to dry, not to dry, but to cook and solidify. So just be careful. So just take your time. There's no rush. Always remember with beading, you know, there's no rush. Just enjoy the process. So I've covered quite a bit of that top of the bead. Going as close as I want, as I can, without actually touching. And I've touched, so I'm just going to use my other end to pop that off. That should be fine. And then now I've got it on, I'm going to slightly sort of bring some bits down, just to create more of a sort of graduated, kind of drippy feel to it. But you can absolutely do what you want. You know, in my example to begin with, I showed you how I'd made lines, how I'd gone from the middle out. So, you know, have an experiment. You could do dots, you could do anything, you know, have a little experiment. Okay. So then what you would do is you'd then get some more. This won't dry, so you are absolutely fine with this. This will not dry until it has been in the oven. So you don't need to worry about it. It's not like using a glaze that's going to dry on you, or some normal resin which has a curing time. This does not have a curing time. It is cured by going in the oven. So I'm going to stick some more on. And again, I will just manipulate it a little bit to bring it up to sort of join. Just give it a... Go back a bit more. I've got shaky hands. I think my hand was resting on the edge of my desk, making me shake. Balance it a little bit more. There we go. Once this is dry, it will stick permanently to your paper. So there we go. So that is our first one. So these ones, I'm going to stick that on there. No, I'm not, because it's going to fall. Stick that on there. This one, it says you need to cook it in the oven at 130 degrees Celsius or 265 degrees Fahrenheit, and you bake it for a minimum of 20 minutes. Now, we do not have a big surface area. We don't have a lot of it. I found that 20 minutes was absolutely plenty. Okay, so let's move on to the UV resin. Now, if you've never used UV resin, let's just have a little bit of a chat about it. So when you get your UV resin, it will come in a black box, a black bottle rather, and it needs to be kept away from UV light, which is basically sunlight. So if you use UV resin, ideally you would have a UV lamp, but if you live in sunny climes or on a sunny day, you can get your UV resin to harden and cure by leaving it in the sun. It will take longer, but you can absolutely do it. So don't let that put you off the fact that you need a UV lamp. It's very similar to the kind of stuff that you would have on your nails. That is also cured by UV lights. But I do have a little UV lamp here, which is what I'm going to use today. Now, when you have your UV lamp on, which I would just turn on so that you can see it glows, what you don't want to be doing is doing anything to do with UV resin near it, because then it will start to cure from the light that is emitted. I know that sounds really obvious, but you also need to be bearing in mind that if you are doing UV resin on a sunny day and there is sun coming in, that will also cure your resin whilst you are using it. So just make sure you're kind of using it somewhere where it's not going to start to pre-cure. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decant some of this into my bowl again. And I'm going to try and choose about the same amount because that seemed to work quite well for the last one. And this is a lot runnier, so I'll need to bear that in mind. So I've kind of gone with about that much. I'm not sure you can see because it is clear. And I'm going to go with the same amount of, I think I'm going to go for the same amount, except this is silver. And I think that is probably just about right. Okay, so let's get some of this onto my cocktail stick. Let's get my bead and let's start to add it, and let's see how it adds. And it probably, by the look of it, it's kind of adding, kind of going on in a similar way-ish, similar-ish way to the FIMO, or FIMO, however you want to pronounce it. Like the polymer clay, the liquid polymer clay. It's going on and it's not particularly running anywhere, which is good. So it's not like it's going to plop off. But it's not it's not quite as easy to control, is what I would say. It's more I sort of felt like with the polymer clay it had really mixed with it, whereas this feels like it is still two separate things. But still it's doing it. But the proof will be in the end result. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cure this before I move on any further, because what I don't want to do is do all of the beads and realise that it doesn't work. So let's just cure this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to move that right out the way, and I'm also going to move this right out the way over to the other side of my coffee, and then I'm going to bring my UV lamp in and I'm going to stick my bead under it, and I will do this. So just tentatively touched it. Yeah, that's good. What I will do is I will make the rest of them up, I will cook the other ones, and then we'll come back for the big reveal at the end. Okay, so here we are, we're back for the final reveal. So all of the beads are dry, all of the beads have finished curing cooking and whatever else they needed to do, and this is the final result. So they are super blingy. They are something completely and utterly different. They might be your thing, they might not be, but you could maybe adapt this method and maybe do something slightly different. So for this bead, which is one of my original ones, you can see I did it in stripes. You could do it in spots, you could do it in zigzags. This one I painted the tops and the bottom, and this one I just did it around the middle. So you can see how you can really vary this method up. And then obviously for my other beads, I just did it at the tops and the bottoms. So the silver ones were the ones that were the UV resin, and they were the most tricky to do, I would say. There was a lot of faffing around with the UV light. There was a lot of faffing with actually applying it, because the sheets of metal didn't really mix in that nicely with it. Whereas with both of the polymer clay liquids, it just sort of blended in and it became a consistent fluid, which then when you applied it to the beads meant that you could easily manipulate it. So there we go, there is the final result. There are the final beads. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment in the box below and let me know what you think. And also remember next week that I have the third of my 4 black beads for you. So come back next week and I will share my last one with you.